Hello there, YouTube. It's Saint Riot, and I make builds in Elden Ring, and then I invade people with the builds that I make. And I made this build before the DLC came out, but once I learned that the DLC was called, like, Shadow of the Erdtree, I thought, okay, well, let's make, like, a shadowy name. So I went with Shaded Ordnance. And once I played through the game the first time, I found the Ancient Meteoric Ore Greatsword, and I was like, oh, that's perfect for this build. It's Strength and Arcane. The arcane scaling's not great, but the strength scaling's pretty good, and it's an interesting weapon. This is the build that I'm using it on, and I'm really curious about this weapon. I'm sure a lot of you are probably aware that, you know, these are RPG games that we're playing and doing PvP in an RPG game. So, like, I'm a lore nerd, and I have, like, serious questions about Ancient Meteoric Ore Blade. But before I get into that, on the topic of RPG, I thought, let me run through the DLC a little bit with this build to go get the Meteoric Ore Sword. And I'm using that Deflect tier. And holy god, is it so much fun with Colossal weapons. I love Rolana. Rolana's like my favorite boss maybe ever in a From Software game. Like, she's so perfect. Everything about her is fantastic. She is, a lot of people confuse like input reading. There is input reading, but it's not necessarily doing what you think it's doing. And a lot of what is associated or attributed to input reading is actually just sort of like positional based decision making on behalf of the enemy there. And Rolana does a really good job of showing you how that works with the way she strings her combos together and what they can do and what she can choose to do or opt out of depending on your positioning, you know, in relation to where she is. And I was really loving that. Also, check out that L1 wiggle right there. I'll go over that a little bit later as just like a bonus at the end of the video. Weird L1 wiggle. Anyway, RPG game, right? I am dying for a From Software game where you don't have to roll, okay? And I know we have the quick step, right? But like it's the avoidant dodging mechanic, right? If I'm playing like a big, hefty, hunky, chunky man or woman, in this case, this character's a woman, I don't want to be rolling all over the place, right? So I took the Wondrous Physic, the tier, the deflection tier, and I gave it to this character, and I put on that talisman that gives you extra defense if you're overweight, and the verdigris, and I was like, can I do invasions without roll? And yeah, a little bit. Against any two mean builds where they don't have to worry about anything other than you. Like this player here is, you know, like capable, mentally capable, right? Endure plus karate, like that's fine. They had a friend, right? But there was another invader, as you can see. If they didn't have another invader in the world, they could have just double teamed me and just killed me. But you know, 1v1, no roll PvP, honestly, not bad. And the deflection tier just allows you to block stuff. So basically you're not giving up any ground, which is what happens when you dodge. You give up ground, right? But with the deflection tier, you don't give up ground anymore. And that seems like the hallmark of like a tanky build, you know? So I tried that for a while, but I kept running into like duos, and I eventually was like, okay, this is not feasible against duos that know what they're doing. Anyway, one of the treasures of the Ruined Forges, Greatsword of Ancient Meteoric Ore, ending in a sharp point, fashioned from an excavated shard of an arrowhead that once was a part of the old gods' arsenal. Who are we talking about here? So I got this weapon and like I was like, it's fun, it rules. It reminds me of like some Armored Core stuff, right? Like it's like it feels like, as opposed to being a fantasy weapon, it's almost like a sci-fi weapon. That's just a vibe that I get from. But who the hell are the old gods? Multiples. The old gods arsenals. So, like, there's different ways to interpret all of these things, right, in these games. And that's part of the fun of it. That's part of the cool stuff. But what this reminds me of is in Dark Souls 3's DLC, where we got the spell Old Moonlight. And the item description was like, this is unrelated to Seath's Moonlight. This is unrelated to the Moonlight of the Pale Dragon. It dates back to a farther time than that. And it was a reference to, like, the Kingfields game, where you got the Moonlight from a Black Dragon. And so it was just sort of like a weird callback to, like, this older game. And I was, you know, that's what this item description reminds me of. And I'm curious, I know a ton of From Software trivia and lore when it comes to, you know, Demon Souls and beyond, everything past that point. But I don't know a lot about the stuff beforehand, and I'm just curious if there are any From Software nerds who played those old games, you know, like Kingsfield and Eternal Ring and that type of stuff. And if this, like, I don't know, raises any flags in your mind about, like, what this could possibly be a reference to. One of the cool things about Elden Ring and Bloodborne is you have this, like, civilization that it's dying, it's on its way out, it's decayed, it's pretty much over. But they have built their ashes on top of this other, older, you know, civilization. Bloodborne and Elden Ring have both done this. Dark Souls 2 did too, but Dark Souls 2 really went into those older civilizations. Like, it was a big part of the story of Dark Souls 2. And it was an even bigger part of the story in the DLCs for Dark Souls 2, because you could actually see those civilizations, like, thriving, well, not thriving, but you could see them at the end of their life cycle. Right? So, with Elden Ring and with Bloodborne, it's more of like a mystery. You've got what was going down in the Thumeru Chalice and what was going on there. Lauren, in the Lauren Chalices, we kind of get an idea of what was going on with the people in Lauren and Ys, etc. But it's very judicious in what it shows us, meaning not a lot. We don't get to see a lot of it. And Elden Ring is the same. Like, we know that there was this stuff that existed before the Golden Order, and in the DLC we get to see a different place and the civilization that predates the Golden Order, but like, that's like from an entirely different area. Oh, a couple videos ago I said that I deflected Blasphemous Blade, and I wanted to show you guys that. So there's another clip of Blasphemous Blade being deflected with the deflect here. Crazy, right? Anyway, I really love that. The aspect of, like, these old ancient civilizations, and we're just sort of like digging around in a dying civilization, but we're finding hints about a civilization from before that. Okay, so the item description of this weapon feels like it is, you know, that sort of callback. It's a callback to a thing that we are so far removed from that it doesn't make any sense to us at all. And that's the most, like, fun thing to theorize about, in my opinion, because the possibilities there are, like, wide open. The stuff that's going on with the Golden Order, like, you can interpret the characters' motivations and stuff like that, but, like, we have a pretty accurate idea of what was happening, when it was happening. Maybe not exactly when it was happening, but, like, around what time, and who was doing it and why. But there's a lot of references and callbacks to stuff, like the people that came before America, the beast and the dragons and stuff like that. What was going on with those guys? And who the hell was using this weapon as an arrowhead? I'm just curious. Okay, so look, that's an L1 wiggle, right? I'm just wiggling my L1 button, and that will block an attack, right? Check this out. I'm going to drink the Physic, and when I drink the Physic, it's going to change my L1. It's going to turn it into two separate animations. See that? Yeah. That animation right there, that's where your deflect is at. How cool is that? Alright, thanks for watching. Let me know who you think this sword belonged to. Alright, till next time. Later, y'all.